if Lebanon can be indicative of positive changes sweeping through the Middle East, I did say before that Lebanon has been a place where new ideas have been tried. It is hoped that the ideas that are being toyed with in Lebanon will catch on. What I can tell from reading the literature, from visiting different websites, observing what the young do today with the language, I don't think can be attributed to Lebanon, but probably can be attributed to globalization and the democratization of the computer and the internet, and the feeling of being limited with the script of the Arabic language to write dialect. So young people who communicate on the internet usually don't use an Arabic keyboard to communicate, because when they communicate in writing, they're writing their thoughts in their native languages, not in the constructed language, not in modern standard Arabic. So they're using the Roman script to write. Because the Roman script is more capable of capturing the whole spectrum of sounds in their spoken languages. To give you an example, the Arabic language has only 3 vowels. That's it. A, U, I. Those are the vowels in Arabic. And therefore there are 3 symbols in the Arabic alphabet to represent these sounds. The different spoken dialects spoken by Palestinians, by Lebanese, by Syrians, by Jordanians, by Iraqis are at least 6 vowels. So how do you represent 6 vowels when you have in the Arabic script only 3 symbols? So that's why the Roman script is becoming more in vogue, because it is capable of capturing these sounds. The Lebanese dialect has 8 vowels. So people are becoming acquainted with the functionality of the Roman script. So it's no longer Lebanon because Lebanon is doing this and we want to imitate Lebanon because Lebanon is a liberal society, it's open to the Mediterranean, etc. So it's cool to do as the Lebanese do. It's because it is functional to use the Roman script, and that's catching on. I mean, sometimes I might, have a text written in Latin script before me, and I can read the words, but it makes no sense to me. But that is because it's written in a dialect that I don't know, in a dialect of Arabic that I don't know. And this is causing a slew of different new discoveries, if you will, discoveries of pre-Arab identities, if you will, or pre-Arab civilizations that have come onto the region. And by getting acquainted with writing one's language, one's spoken language, in a script different from the Arabic script, these young people are getting acquainted with the idea that the sounds of their language can be represented accurately in another script, and can be read to mean something that doesn't sound the same in Arabic. And they begin, I mean, in Lebanon, for instance, I'll give an example from the Palestinian territories also, about place names. When I began talking earlier about these layerings of civilizations that came onto the region, about 95% of place names in Syria and Lebanon, for instance, are Aramaic. They are not Arabic. They sound Arabic because we write them in the Arabic script. But once you write them in the Aramaic script, in the Syriac script, or even in the Hebrew script, you begin to pronounce them the way they should be pronounced. And you realize that the kinship that they have is actually with Aramaic and Canaanite more than a kinship with Arabic. Now, all Semitic languages have common roots and some common meanings. But once you start looking into grammar, you realize that the kinship is perhaps to another language, not Arabic. Let me give you an example. The capital of Lebanon is Beirut. You write it in Arabic, Beirut. It has no meaning in Arabic. As I said, 95% of the towns and villages in Lebanon are Aramaic. So Beirut is one example, has no meaning in Arabic. But if you were to write Beirut, rather than write it in the Arabic script, write it in the Syriac script, or the Aramaic script, or even in the Roman script, you will write it as Beirut, because it's not Beirut, because there's no O in Arabic, it's U, so you have to write it as U. So when you write it Beirut, you will know that the meaning of the town is the wells. Bir in Canaanite and in spoken Lebanese means a well. Birot is the plural form of a well. My hope with this book is to try to steer the conversation on the Middle East and Middle Eastern identities away from the sort of cozy, neat little paradigms that we have formed for ourselves about this area being a monolith, a preserve of a single people, a single language, a single tradition, a single culture, and try to look at the wider picture and try to create a sort of wider conversation, wider contextualization on the Middle East, and begin to recognize the area for its diversity, really, rather than for what we know it today as this single monolithic uniform preserve of one single people, which in reality it's not. And hopefully, I'm hoping that by trying to view the area in its diversity will help us perhaps begin dealing with it in a better manner, dealing with the Middle East in a way that will help us begin recognize what some of the problems with the area are. So far, I've been, I think, lucky enough to have been received positively, and that's very encouraging. But I know for a fact that sometimes going against an established canon is not a pretty thing, and the honeymoon that I've been having these past few weeks, I don't think is going to last. So I'm certain that, you know, and I welcome that, and I actually want this because I want to instigate a conversation on the Middle East. So I'm pretty certain that in certain circles, it is going to be attacked because it challenges the held orthodoxies that we have on the Middle East and the assumed unity of the Arabic language and the Arab peoples.